So this is just a quick overview of today's agenda. I'm Lauren Calloway, Senior Content Manager at UAI. I will do a quick welcome and introductions. We will then move on to a working group charter review and update from our leadership team. And then our working group sponsor, Bert Hargesheimer from CPS Energy, will be talking about the results from a survey that we administered across the group around advanced safety benchmarking. And then I will close with a quick update on things that are upcoming for UAI over the next couple months. Next slide. I want to just take a minute to review our current UAI members. We are currently composed of members from 137 unique operating companies from various that sit within that sit independently or under larger group members. We have a number of international utilities spanning across Europe all the way to Hong Kong. And we also are joined by the leading solution providers in this market. Next slide. I'd like to remind everybody of our working group best practices. We are here to learn, so make sure that you're asking questions if you have them. If you have anything to contribute to the discussion, please don't be shy. We are here, to create this space for everyone to learn and help others learn. I also want to take note of the chat button, or the chat ability that we have through the webinar platform. So if you'll see on the control panel towards the bottom, if during the presentation or at any point you have a question or a comment and you don't want to chime in verbally, you can go ahead and type that into the chat and we will address it. As well, we encourage members to connect outside of our working group meetings if they have questions or feedback for anyone in the group or anything that they hear about. And then also, if you have colleagues at your organization that you think would benefit from this group, please do encourage other UAI members to join, and Kevin can help facilitate that. Next slide. So the UAI is proud to support its members in realizing their desired business outcomes using data analytics. We do that through working groups such as this one, as well as our in-person events and through all of our online content and news. Next slide. After the meeting, you can find all of the working group documents and recordings on our website at this link. By following this link, Kevin will go ahead and send that out to the group after we conclude today. All right, quick introduction. So I'd like to thank our executive sponsor, Bert Hargesheimer, who is Senior Director of Enterprise and Public Safety over at CPS Energy. Hi, Bert.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you great. Also want to thank our working group leader, Andrea Guadarrama, who is Senior Manager of Safety and Health, also over at CPS Energy. Over at UAI, we have myself, Lauren Calloway, Senior Content Manager over at UAI. We also have our membership coordinator, Kevin Crate, and I also want to share a welcome to a new colleague, Barb London, who will be our Director of Engagement and Content over at UAI. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Lauren.
All right, I'm going to hand it over to Bert to review our working group charter.
So our working group charter is focused on pursuing a new means of understanding safety through analytics, with a greater focus on predictive and prescriptive insights into safe work. The working group will share the role of analysis and measurement in the efforts of utility companies. The focus will be on searching for methods of analysis that result in measurable benefit to safety for workers, the public, and customers. Next slide. Are you here? Can you hear me?
Hey, Bert, it's Kevin. We're actually having a little audio interruptions.
From me? Am I choppy?
Yeah, now I can hear you a little better.
Let me call in. I'm doing through the computer, but let me call in.
Okay.
All right, everyone, please hang on for just a second. Appreciate your patience here.
So Bert, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you great.
Okay, so you want me to walk through the chart?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just going back and doing a quick review of the charter one more time so we can all hear you.
Sounds good. So the working group will pursue new means of understanding safety through analytics, with a greater focus on predictive and prescriptive insights into safe work. The working group will share the role of analysis and measurements in the efforts of utility companies. The focus will be on searching for methods of analysis that result in measurable benefit to safety for workers, the public, and customers. Go ahead, next slide. So we did a survey and amongst the members, and we didn't get a ton of responses, but I think we got enough to move forward. And my hope is that we can use some of this to get more folks pulled into the group. Go ahead, next slide. So I'll run through the summary of the survey, talk about the benchmark ranks, the future benchmarks, talk about leading indicators a little bit, and then review the comments. So the survey summary, we had 13 individuals take the survey. Of those 13, 11 ranked it as a high priority. The other 2 ranked it as a medium priority. We had a good cross section of interest from different companies in the survey. So I think we get some good thoughts. Next slide. So the benchmark ranking. So this was a ranking of which benchmarks were the most used by companies right now. So recordable incident rate was number 1 by far. Second was DART. Gas line hits was 3rd. Preventable motor vehicle accident rate was 4th. Flashes was 5th. Incident severity was 6th, and good catches were 7th. There's some others in there, but those were the top 7 that got at least 5 votes. Next slide. So in the future, probably the biggest priority was the preventable motor vehicle accident rate. Recordable incident rate didn't lose a lot of focus. Gas line hits, incident severity, days away, near miss, and good catch and flashes. I was kind of surprised that flashes weren't tracked more on the current than before, but I think that's a good one to track going forward, and we track it at CPS Energy. Next slide. So some of the comments, about the benchmarking effort was how much time monthly would it be? Is it okay that I'm not in the safety department? What does it entail? Want to understand more, and then leading indicators is a big one for us at CPS, and I think that's when we stood up the working group, that was the direction we got from the executive advisory committee was we needed to look at leading indicators and predictive analytics. Next slide. New to the group, will the anonymized data be available to the participants? Would love to add observation data. And then as an initial step, it would be good to provide definitions. So those were all of the comments. Next slide. Well, you know, these are just the questions that I compiled based on the comments in the survey. We'll need to compile and align the definitions. I think most companies that are tracking preventable motor vehicle accident rate as an example, are tracking it for millions of miles driven. I think the key on that one is going to be the definition of a motor vehicle accident and making sure that that's all aligned for everybody. How will we manage anonymity? We're involved in a number of different benchmarking groups, and some of them are much stronger on anonymity than others. But I think that's something we need to really think about and make sure that everybody that's going to participate has a clear picture of what how anonymous their data will be, and how we're going to manage that. The third question is, who will collect the data, compile the reports, and distribute? My sense is, I haven't talked with Lauren about this yet, but my sense is that this should be somebody third party and not one of the members. But certainly something for us to discuss and sort through. And then, back to some of the questions on how much is this going to take. I mean, I think this is probably an annual exercise that may build into maybe some ad hoc stuff during the year, but really I think it's probably an annual exercise to start with, so it's probably nominal work to begin with. So at this point I'd like to just open it up to the group to, if anybody wants to discuss or assert their opinion or ask questions about any of these next steps or the benchmarking survey in general. I'd like to open it up at this point.
I'm just curious if anyone in the group had been able to weigh in on this survey at all, and if they could just in particular, mention what some of their priorities would be in terms of, various benchmarks to look at, or if they might be thinking about their own utility. Sarah, is this, I'm just curious at Ameren, if there's, has there been much effort for Ameren to look around different benchmarks for predictive analytics? Can everyone hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Because I'm getting a lot of feedback from my microphone right now. Sarah, can you hear me? So I had a question for Sarah over at Ameren. I see she's on the call today. What her thoughts were in terms of what you guys are doing as far as developing benchmarks around predictive analytics, and what your thoughts would be with regards to, working as a group to develop benchmarks. All right, well, I will just move on. I will just go ahead and move on to someone else in the group. I see Stephen over at Benton PUD is on the call today. Steve, do you have any thoughts in this area?
No, I don't really have any thoughts. We're pretty much novices at collecting data, so we're looking for other people to give us some insight as to what we should be collecting and how we should collect it and what we need to do to define certain data that we need to collect. There is one thing that is clearly defined in OSHA and all other state laws. What's first aid and what is not first aid is clearly defined. So I don't think that's a question.
Bert, do you have any advice for Steve just as far as the initial steps around data to collect?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, you know, you can see what people or what companies are currently tracking. I mean, I think those would be the first things to look at. But you know, I'd be happy to talk with you offline about, you know, kind of the way we approach things and kind of where we're going. But I think also, like, I feel like this benchmarking can lead into that. I mean, you know, obviously RIR is something we probably already track, but, you know, starting to look at things like the preventable motor vehicle accident rate is important, as well as, you know, trying to look at some of the leading indicators or some of the precursors that lead to injuries or accidents. I know somebody asked a question about how do we find the first aid. You know, so if you're having, you know, a lot of first aids, and you're not having a lot of recordable injuries, you're probably getting lucky that some of those aren't recordable. I want to look at what are some of the causal factors behind it. So first aids, as an example, would be a good precursor. I don't know if I'd call it a leading indicator, but precursor of recordable injuries. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Well, what you're talking about there is Heinrich's pyramid, where so many close calls lead to so many first aids that lead to so many serious injuries that eventually lead to lost time or death. So, yeah, and we're fully aware of that. We're just, you know, we have a data collection software program that our IT department has just implemented recently. So we're still trying to figure out how we're going to mine the data and what use it's going to be to us when we do mine it. You know, what we're going to do. So those are the things that we're in this group to kind of find out from the larger utilities. You know, we only have 153 employees at Benton PUD, so it's a pretty small utility compared to some of the utilities in this group that maybe have some additional resources that we don't have. So.
I'm curious, I'd like to ask Susan Forsyth over at American Electric Power, you know, what they're doing around benchmarks and how, you know, if this effort is relevant to some of those efforts, or if you have anything to weigh into this conversation.
Actually, this is the first time I've gotten on, been able to get on, but we are doing, we have a lot of data. We're just really trying to sift through. We concentrate more on the DART events. Lately, it's been a lot of, we track like an actual and a potential severity and a serious injury rate. So I'm just kind of getting started, trying to figure out what all we're doing.
Yeah. And then, you know, Kurt, I see that you're also on the line as well. I know that you play a pretty big role around sort of the data and the architecture element over at Nebraska Public Power. What is, you know, are you familiar with efforts that are going on currently? And if this type of benchmarking is something that MPPD has thought about or would like to participate in.
Yes, we would like to participate in this type of benchmarking. Our primary interest, though, has been in the broader, the big data analytics, predicting, being able to predict and or shine light on areas that we can take action on. And I thought I recalled, I missed a couple of these meetings, but I thought I recall a few meetings ago, there was a third party that spoke that was talking about beginning to collect that data and doing some of the analytics. Is that part of this effort, or is that a separate effort? Where does that stand?
Bert, do you want to take that one, or? Bert, are you on the line still? I think we might have lost Bert. So, oh no, I think you're there. All right, I think Bert's having some issues with his audio, so I'll just jump in until we can hear from him. So, really, Kurt, I think that the initial conversation that was had with this group was based on the fact that very few members, had access to a lot of safety data. There was a discussion around, what would the effort be like to collect data from a number of different members and be able to share that, so that utilities that might not have easy access to good safety data could, have a resource to perform analytics and, use to build up their own internal data sets. I think from that conversation, we really came to, well, data's good, but what's the use of data if you're not really sure how to use it and how to measure, what you should be measuring. And so I think the conversation around benchmarks really developed out of that as kind of a starting point to, really figure out how to define various benchmarks that would support predictive analytics within safety, as opposed to some of the more kind of traditional backwards looking benchmarks.
So this is Steve Frost again, and some of the conversation in some earlier meetings was centered around how to define the seriousness of an accident that would have occurred had it not been caught before it occurred. So, the good catches, near misses conversation. So I'm kind of wondering how people are defining, what didn't happen and putting a tag on it and ranking it according to severity, I guess.
Yeah, that's certainly a good conversation. Bert, do we have you back on? Can we hear from Bert on that? I'm wondering if he still has issues with audio.
Yeah, sorry, I was having mute problems. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you great.
Yeah, so I think that's a good question to have on the severity. I think that's something to work out with the group of what's the best way to benchmark. One of the things we look at the average cost per recordable injury to kind of measure our severity and see whether it's trending up or down. But I think that's it. And I'm not, that's what you're talking about, but that's something we look.
Bert, I think we're losing you again.
Can you hear me? You can't hear me now, or am I?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. And the severity, I think it's something we can look at. I think it would be good to know how other people are measuring it. How we currently measure it is lost days per recordable injury to see if our recordable injuries are becoming more severe or less severe.
Okay, the question I had though was, you know, measuring good catches, near misses, and putting a severity tag on those, and categorizing those with your data analytics to try to determine what near misses or good catches are more important than others, I guess.
Yeah, so we track our, we have what we call high-risk events, which include gas line hits, primary or secondary flashes, explosions, or any fire more than the incipient fire that don't result in an injury. So those are all of our we call them high-risk events, but those are the more severe, potentially more severe good catches. And we track those and do root cause analysis on it, but we track those as a precursor or a leading indicator.
Okay.
And certainly, you know, certainly that's something for the group to discuss. Is that, I mean, we'd like to align what we track with others so that we can benchmark across industry and determine, you know, how do we, are we doing pretty good? Are we pretty bad? You know, are we doing, obviously we can track our trending, but we don't know how we're doing compared to others.
So, Bert, in terms of next steps for the group, it sounds like we have, you know, a group of individuals that are interested, based on the survey, that are interested in, you know, breaking out and working on this effort. You know, I think in terms of next steps, it's probably important to start getting that group together. I would encourage anyone else on the call that wants to be a part of, you know, this effort. You know, please let us know so we can make sure to include you in those communications moving forward. And you know, Kevin, would you mind being the coordinator for that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Wonderful. Bert, do you have any more questions for the group? All right. I'm guessing that's a no, unless there's an audio issue again. Before we move on. All right, great.
I don't have any further questions, sorry.
All right. Before we move on, does anyone in the group have any questions or anything they'd like to add? All right, let's go ahead and move on. I just have some closing items, so we will end the call a little bit early today and give you guys back part of your hour. So we are going to, for our next meeting, we will have our April in-person meeting at Utility Analytics Summit. We will be hearing from Southern California Edison Safety Group on some of the predictive safety analytics that they've been doing, and then we'll also take it as an opportunity to further this discussion around benchmarking. Again, meeting notes, presentations, a roster, and recordings of group calls are all available online in the private working group community. You'll see that link. Kevin will provide that when he sends out the notes from this call. Next slide. So I wanted to take a minute, while we're on the topic of surveys. So UAI is in the midst of conducting an analytics brand perception survey. So if you have any experience with utility analytics technologies, you know, we definitely encourage you to take part in the survey. We have the link included here. You will be entered for a chance to win one of 5 Google Homes, which are valued at $129. Those things are awesome. It's kind of like a Echo or an Alexa Siri type thing for your house, so it's great. Next slide. Again, I want to encourage everyone to join Utility Analytics Institute in Irvine, California next April 16th through 18th in Irvine, California for our spring event, Utility Analytics Summit. We've got a great program put together and a couple of items that are focused around safety analytics as well. So definitely hope you can make it. Next slide. Again, I do want to encourage everyone to engage and to contribute and to be part of this whole safety analytics discussion, no matter where you are at with respect to your safety analytics. If you're very advanced or just at the beginning stages, either way, there's a lot of value to be gained within an exchange from peers in the industry. Oh, and if you are working on a safety analytics project at your utility, please let us know. We would love to put together a project profile of that to share with other UAI members. Next slide. Last, I want to encourage everyone to follow us on social media just to get information on events, research, and any items that we may have going on over at UAI. And again, thanks everyone for taking the time today. I hope to hear from you all in the future. Have a good day.